Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast. This is not Chris Carter, spoiler alert, but this is Brian Batko. And joining me for today's episode will be my Steelers beat partner, Ray Fittipaldo. And guess what? We're going to talk about the NFL draft. What else would we do this time of year? Not only that, but we're going to go through and do a 7-round mock draft with Ray and I putting our heads together. So we will see you right after this quick break on the other side.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Yeah, once again, no Chris Carter here today. Chris is he's got a day off, vacation, personal day, whatever you want to call it. So we've got the old gang back together, Brian Batko and Ray Fittipaldo. Ray, how's it going, man?
Good, Brian. How are you? 17 days away from the NFL draft. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, and that's why I figured this would be a good time since, we probably won't do this together again before then. And last year we did this exercise. So it's taken us back to the old chipped ham and football. That's what Pittsburgh does days. Speaking of which, I've got a shirt now that says that. My buddy
nice.
Taylor, who's got Yin's clothing, made this for me. So check that out, YINZZ. So check it out for the old chipped ham and football shirt if you're a diehard Ray and Brian podcast fan. But last year when we did this, Ray, I think our first round, we tried to think outside the box, and last year it was to our detriment because, as I recall, we picked Georgia defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt for the Steelers at 20th overall. That didn't, that's not how it went down, but it was at least a good exercise. I think we pulled up one of these mock draft simulators, and I'm going to do the same thing again here, and I'll lay out the situation for Ray as we go, write down our picks. We'll do day 1 in the first segment here, day 2 in the second segment, and day 3 in the third segment. So that'll give us ample time to talk about everybody. Ray, are you ready to roll? Do you want to be Omar Khan or Andy Weidel?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll be Andy Weidel. You could be Omar.
I mean, former South Hills offensive linemen really should stick together as we make these draft picks here. So, all right. And just for reference, we're using NFL mockdraftdatabase.com. I think they do a good job with projecting people and the value of, different prospects. And they've got a lot of players on here. So Ray at 17 overall went right before us was Broderick Jones to the Washington Commanders, who I think he was the most recent player you mocked to the Steelers, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And the pick right before that, 15 to Green Bay, was Lucas Van Ness, defensive lineman from Iowa. So they are they're just grabbing people that you have already mocked to the Steelers just to make this harder on us. But I'll tell you who's on the board, Ray.
Okay.
Miles Murphy from Clemson, big edge rusher. We've got Nolan Smith, edge rusher from Georgia, who's been kind of a late riser here in this process. Jordan Addison, Kenny Pickett's former number 1 target at Pitt. We've got Pitt defensive lineman Kalijah Cansey, Brian Branch from Alabama, and Deonte Banks are the top 2 defensive backs on this website. And the top O lineman at this point is Darnell Wright from Tennessee. Maybe he's the most recent player you mocked to the Steelers.
Yeah,
but
it was Van Ness number 1, Broderick Jones number 2, and then Darnell Wright in the third.
Yeah, and then we've got Clemson D lineman Brian Brzee is on here as well. I'm assuming you're not interested in Bijan Robinson, running back from Texas, or tight end Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. So,
correct.
All right.
Okay.
Any of those names stand out to you, Ray?
Yeah, for me, Darnell Wright and Deonte Banks, and I think just 50-50 there. They need a corner, definitely. And they need a tackle. And Darnell Wright has been a left tackle. He was a left tackle during his junior year with the Vols, and right tackle before and after that. Listen, for me, I'm going to go by what I've said all along. This is a deep corner class. Go get your lineman early. I will go Darnell Wright, a tackle from Tennessee with number 17 overall.
What about Brian Brzee from Clemson? What do you make of him? We're sticking with the trenches at least. If you flip it over
Yeah,
to the other side, do you think he's worthy of a first-round pick?
I do. I was thinking more, if he's available at 32, I would have no issue with that. He's a redshirt sophomore, had a really difficult season last year. His sister died of cancer, younger sister, and he was dealing with some injuries. And, he had a good workout at the combine. I think he had a good pro day. So he's definitely vaulted himself back into that first round conversation. I just look at the history, the way the Steelers have done things when there's an injury. I don't think they're afraid to take that guy at the end of round 1 or round 2. But just 17 is probably a little bit too high for me. But I definitely think he's one of the top defensive tackles in this draft. And, to be honest with you, I think they would be lucky if he's still there at 32. I just wouldn't take him at 17.
Okay, well we can go with Darnell Wright then, who's got a clean bill of health. We haven't done much to address the tackle position in free agency. We know that much. LaRaven Clark is a journeyman through and through. So this is probably the right time to add some competition for Dan Moore and Chuks Okorafor. So I guess I can pencil in Darnell Wright, unless you think are we missing the boat on any of these guys at the top, like a Jordan Addison, because of the Pickett connection, or are you just not there on him at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I acknowledge the pick connection. I know you want to make your franchise quarterback happy, but for me, 17 would be too high there. I would be okay with him in the second round, Brian. But to be honest with you, so combine workout, right? I mean, he didn't knock anyone's socks off, so I'd feel more comfortable with him in the second round. If he's there, again, I don't know if he's going to be there, but I'm fine with picking a guy in the trenches.
Yeah, and obviously, Joey Porter Jr. is not there for us in this simulation. He went 10th overall to the Eagles, which could very well happen. And the big two corners, Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, they went in the top 10, which is also very possible at the end of this month when the real draft rolls around. Intrigued at all by either the edge rushers, Miles Murphy or Nolan Smith? Very different types of players. I mean, Murphy, you look at what the Steelers do, he's a defensive end most likely, whereas Nolan Smith would be an outside linebacker and maybe even have a chance to play off the ball a little bit if they want to get creative, because he is undersized, but his athleticism is off the charts.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think Nolan Smith was 240 at the combine. So for him to play 3-4 outside linebacker, you'd have to add 10 pounds at least, for him to get ready to get up to speed there. Obviously, you have the athleticism if you wanted to try him off the ball. Again, that would be a projection. And then Murphy, he's one of those tweeners, right? I mean, he's a great athlete. Doesn't necessarily fit as a 5 technique for the Steelers. You'd have to add weight there, probably 15 to 20 pounds. Or you could slim him down and, ask him to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. But I'm not doing that in the first round. They have not addressed outside linebacker in free agency, but you have 2 starters there, so I'm going to wait until later in the draft if that's how they view Miles Murphy. I don't know how they would view him, whether he'd be a 5 technique or an outside backer, but I'm waiting until second, third, fourth round to get my backup outside linebacker.
The last one I'll mention, Kalijah Cansey to the Steelers. Maybe you've talked about this with Adam or Chris. I think he could be a great player in the NFL, but I just don't see him as a fit. And it's not because the Steelers are a quote-unquote 3-4 team or anything like that. That is kind of a misnomer these days. But generally with what they want with their front, they ask big people to do things up front for them. And that's just not the player that Cansey is. It's really hard to see him being a fit, I think, with, what the Steelers have built defensively. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't really see that coming to pass, even if he is still on the board. And for some people, if he's on the board at 17, he'll be the best prospect available.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great player. I just don't know about the fit with the Steelers. He's not a nose tackle, so he would be an undersized 3 technique. But again, I think he's a terrific player. I just don't think the way the Steelers play defense, I don't think that he would be on the board for them at that point.
I agree. I think if he finds the right team that wants to use him as a penetrating defensive tackle and he's got 280 and 290 on each side of him, then he could get after quarterbacks the same way he did at Pitt. But I think, with the Steelers, you'd be playing with TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith on one side of you. So it just doesn't really seem to add up for me. But all right, so we've got Darnell Wright from Tennessee, and Ray, I've got these little thumbtacks I'm going to put on the map here behind us. So I'm going to find Knoxville, Tennessee, right
Knoxville
there.
on the world map. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get a U.S. map here, so you'll just have to trust me that I put that over in the Smoky Mountains area.
You got Knoxville there, and I got Pittsburgh right behind me there. So there you go.
Yeah, you're in our war room, I guess, for the most part, while I'm out here traversing the country. But all right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into rounds 2 and 3. But first, I wanted to just give you guys a quick word from GameTime.co. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. You got great deals on last-minute tickets, their best price guarantee, and with all that, you can stop stressing over those tickets. Start getting hyped up for the actual fun that you'll have. Don't worry about the planning so much as long as you use the Game Time app. It allows you to book those tickets at the last minute if you didn't plan it out in advance. I don't know about you guys. There's plenty of times I want to go to something and I just kind of get caught up in the actual logistics of making it happen. But with Game Time, it's a lot easier because you get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and more. The Game Time guarantee, too, means you'll always get the best price. So if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will actually credit you 110% of the difference. So snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code PITT for $20 off your first purchase, or you can go to their website, gametime.co. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code PITT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, Ray, bring you back in here for day 2 of our mock draft. I just ran the simulator again here, and we've got some people still on the board. At least one notable name to me who was also in contention, I think, for our first pick, Brian Branch from Alabama, safety / nickel corner, whatever you want to consider him, a jack of all trades defender on the back end. Are you quick to pounce on him, or should I read off some other names here who are still around, Ray?
I think that's a really good option, but let's see who the other names are. Yeah.
Okay, we've got Keely Ringo, corner from Georgia. So, those guys are definitely on the radar, given that we didn't, we passed on Deonte Banks in round 1. Another corner, Cam Smith from South Carolina. The Steelers seem to have a thing for drafting guys named Cam on defense, so you can't discount that. Got Jalen Hyatt, a wide receiver from Tennessee. Another big tackle, DeJuan Jones from Ohio State, but I don't think we want to double down on tackles at this point. And then a couple more intriguing names, a few more actually, at inside linebacker. Drew Sanders from Arkansas, Trenton Simpson from Clemson, and Jack Campbell from Iowa. Is there a player or a position you're super high on, Ray, that you're wondering if I skipped over?
No. How about defensive lineman? Before we.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Bressee's gone. I'd say the best player on the board right now is Keion White from Georgia Tech. But there's also a couple more undersized edges in Felix and Udike Uzama and BJ LSU. If you want a pure tackle, Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, he is on the board here. If you think 32 is not too high, as is Siaki Ika from Baylor and Tui Pilotu from USC.
Yeah, for me, Brian, and I don't know about you, I'm not really looking at inside linebacker that early. So for me, it would be either Ringo or Brian Branch. Hey, listen, they need a slot corner. This is a deep draft for corners. Let's go. Let's see what you think, but let's go Brian Branch here, slot corner from Alabama, and let's hash it out. Let's have a discussion.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. If you would have thrown out a name that I really wasn't into, I would have said so. Emmanuel Forbes, I skipped over his name. He's on here as well from Mississippi State. But the thing that I like more about Branch is I just think he can wear more hats than Emmanuel Forbes. He's a good tackler. He's good in run support. So maybe he's ultimately your starting safety next to Minkah Fitzpatrick, or maybe he's your day one starting slot corner. I just think he can do a lot more. And at this point, Ray, this seems like a fall for him. I think maybe we should just snap him up at 32 and, just be thankful that he was there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with that. If you look at Lance Zierlein's rankings on NFL.com, he has a top 10 grade on him. I think others maybe have him down in the 20s, but listen, for him to get to 32, I understand, slot corner is kind of like a fringe starting position in the NFL, but he's still going to play 65, 70% of the snaps probably once he does become the starter. So 32, I say let's go. Let's pounce on that.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, he's not the biggest, not the fastest guy, so that's why you're going to see some analysts split on him too. But we'll grab him. I think he fits in with what our Steelers defense would need. All right, we're back up on the clock now at pick number 49. Let's see who we lost in between there. A couple corners went, and Cam Smith and Keely Ringo are gone, and Emmanuel Forbes as well. But still on the border, a lot of those inside linebackers that we mentioned, Ray, Drew Sanders, Jack Campbell, are still out there. Keion White, defensive lineman from Georgia Tech, who visited the Steelers last week. Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, who's more of a true nose tackle. And if you're looking more outside corner, Julius Brents from Kansas State and Tyreek Stevenson from Miami are on the board too. Is there any position that you feel like you'd want to target at this point, now that we've got an offensive tackle and a Swiss Army knife defensive back?
I know what I'm thinking, but just out of curiosity, is Jonathan Mingo, the receiver from Ole Miss, still on the board?
Forgot to go to Tuscaloosa. Let's see here. Wide receiver from Mississippi, Jonathan Mingo. Yes, he is still available. He visited the Steelers as well for a pre-draft. So you know that they've got some interest in him. 6'2", 200, can play outside and can probably play inside.
This one, you're middle of the second round. No, it's your extra pick. I know what I'm thinking. I would go either outside corner or Keion White here. But let's have a discussion. Where would you target inside linebacker after all the moves they made in free agency there?
See, that's the thing. I think they did enough that I'm not too eager to try to make a move there. I mean, I just don't know. Jack Campbell, I think, is kind of your classic downhill linebacker that I feel like I don't know how much of an upgrade he is over Cole Holcomb. I could be wrong. People are pretty split on him, and we've talked about him a lot on the YouTube show and the North Shore Drive. Sanders from Arkansas is intriguing because I think he could also maybe help you at edge rusher if you really needed a body. I mean, he's 6'5", 240, and he played that position originally at Alabama. So he's got a lot to him. A lot to like there, but Keion White from Georgia Tech, I've kind of come to appreciate him as a prospect. I mean, he's got the size, 6'5", 285, moves really well. He's got an injury history as well. 6-year guy at Georgia Tech who transferred from Old Dominion, but his tape is pretty good, I think, and his athletic testing is really good.
Well, I'm on board with that. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I think that solves the defensive line conundrum for us. It doesn't give us a true nose, but after signing Braden Fehoko, maybe the Steelers don't necessarily need that player anymore. And
you know what it does? You address O-line, you address corner, and you address D-line in the first 3 rounds. I think that's consensus. What everyone is thinking is what's going to happen. So, let's do it.
All right. Yeah, I don't know that he's going to last till 49 in a real draft either. But again, we're not just pulling these out of thin air. We're going off the mock draft randomizer, whatever you want to call it. So maybe we just got lucky. And I saw an interview with Keion White from his pro day down in Atlanta. He said he can play anywhere from outside linebacker if a team needs him to do that to 3 techniques. So, I mean, he's willing and able. He said the team is paying him, so he'll go wherever they tell him to go. I like that attitude on our team, right? I'm locking in Keion White. We're back to Atlanta up here on the board. All righty, let's see here. For our last pick of day 2 of our draft, the top names on this board: Antonio Johnson, safety from Texas A&M. I think we solved that. DJ Turner, corner from Michigan. He's a little smaller. Sidney Brown, true safety from Illinois. Andre Carter, edge rusher from Army. We've got Luke Whippler, interior lineman from Ohio State. A couple more safeties: Jordan Battle, Jamie Robinson from Alabama, Florida State, respectively. And I'll just tell you right now, at wide receiver, Jonathan Mingo from Mississippi is still available if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, I would, here, Brian.
All the inside linebackers have dried up in between pick 49 and 80.
Yeah, which I thought would happen. For me, I think receiver, because they didn't address that in free agency, or you go outside corner here to pick up a young guy to be mentored by Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking that too. And here are a few more names at outside corner: Darius Rush from South Carolina, 6'2", another pre-draft visitor. Eli Ricks from Alabama, Jalen Jones from Texas A&M, also 6'2", and Riley Moss from Iowa, who the Steelers were at his pro day with Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan.
Correct. Boy, I would think Mingo would be the highest rated player on the board there. Hey, in the 3rd round, how do you want to do this? You want to go who the higher rated player is? We can go top outside corner, or we can go Jonathan Mingo here. I'm pretty flexible, but I'm a little bit surprised Mingo is still there, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna push outside corner here because I think Brian Branch isn't going to do that. He'll do a lot for you in the secondary, but I don't think he's going to play on the outside. And you kind of need to groom somebody behind Patrick Peterson. And I'd say there's no guarantee that Akella Witherspoon or James Pierre gets back into anybody's good graces over at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. So this is a guy that I hadn't paid too much attention to, but how do you feel about this Jalen Jones from Texas A&M? He's got the size, ran pretty well at the combine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this draft is all about. There's a shortage of pure slot corners, but there are a lot of 6'1", 6'2" guys, long guys, athletes who can run. Now, a lot of them aren't finished products. And
that's okay. We don't need this guy to play right away.
Right. So you need somebody to mentor him. So, yeah, I think this is kind of the spot there where you go with a traits-based prospect and see what you could do there, getting him into your program.
All right, we'll go Jalen Jones from College Station, locking him in, putting the little tack down here in Texas, right around here somewhere. All right, Ray, when we come back, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll try to crush the draft on day 3 with our 1 4th rounder and 2 7th rounders. Thanks a lot, Akella Witherspoon. And who was the other pick? Was it Malik Reed that they traded one of these away for?
Yes, Malik Reed, correct. Right, good memory.
Thank them. We'll be right back here on the North Shore Drive. All right, so just to recap, round 1, we went Darnell Wright from Tennessee, offensive tackle. Round 2, we went Brian Branch from Alabama and Keion White from Georgia Tech, corner/safety and a DN/outside linebacker, if you want to call him that, pure edge guy. And then in round 3, a pure outside corner from Texas A&M, Jalen Jones. So we've gone 3 straight picks on the defensive side of the ball. Before we make a pick or even list any names here for the 4th round, Ray, what are your consensus or general take on what we should be doing here philosophically? Because this is going to be our last pick in the meat of the draft before we really have to just throw a couple darts at the end of this thing, literally, with my map here.
Yeah, so for me, do you want to get an inside linebacker / special teams player in here with that pick to sort of fill out that room? You got Holcomb, you got Robertson, you got Mark Robinson. I think we all probably agree that there's going to be a 4th guy. We don't know when that guy's going to come. But by the same token, you can go offense. You can go a receiver to challenge Calvin Austin and Anthony Miller here. Or you can go, and I think this is less likely now since they re-signed Zach Gentry, but you could go if there's a blocking tight end on that board that you think is going to be better than Zach Gentry. who's maybe a little bit better of a pass catcher too, maybe you go tight end there. So I would be targeting those three positions, and let's see who's available. This one should be fun.
I'm a Zach Gentry believer, so I'm going to put my foot down and say no Andy Weidel Fittipaldo. We're not going tight end here in the 4th round. Maybe I'll give you that pick in the 7th if one of your pet guys is there. But all right, I'll read off to you the inside linebackers at the top of this board. Owen Papo from Auburn, Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati, Ventrell Miller from Florida, Servassier Dennis from Pitt, Mohamed Diabate from Utah, and do we do it? Nick Herbig from Wisconsin. Now that we've got his big brother on the offensive line, he's more of a hybrid edge inside linebacker. Aubrey Miller from Jackson State is another one here. I've seen some clips of him hitting people pretty hard. But the other position you threw out there, I'll tell you the receivers who are at the top of the list here. Trey Palmer from Nebraska, Dontavian Wicks, Virginia, Parker Washington, Penn State, Charlie Jones, Purdue, a pre-draft visitor, and then a couple of Maryland guys, Rakeem Jarrett and Dante Demas Jr. from Maryland. So you'd think Mike Tomlin would have some familiarity with them in College Park. Is there a player across those two positions who jumps out at you? Since we kind of narrowed it down to where we think we're weak on the roster at this point.
Yeah. So I would go either two guys, and you can chime in if there's somebody I missed that you feel strongly about. Ivan Pace, undersized inside backer, but very, very good on the blitz. Might have to add a little bit of weight, but I think he's a good prospect. And then Charlie Jones in here for a pre-draft visit. There's something there. The Steelers like him enough to bring him in. They need a slot possession type receiver. So I could be talked into either, but I would say Pace or Jones there with this pick.
Well, that worked out well because out of those dozen or so names, the one that I had in mind was Charlie Jones from Purdue. Okay. Really productive last year in his only season in West Lafayette. Came from Iowa, where the forward pass hasn't really made it there consistently on Saturdays yet. But so we won't hold that against him. And yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue that I look at right now in the Steelers receiving core is, do you have a reliable slot receiver? I mean, ideally, Calvin Austin with his 4.3 speed will help you out there, but it couldn't hurt to get a little bigger. I mean, Charlie Jones isn't huge, but at 5'11", he might make Calvin Austin look small. So I'm good with a guy who's proven his ability to get open in college. And, we haven't added a weapon for Kenny Pickett yet in the draft. Probably time to do that. We'll go back to back on the Joneses with Jalen and Charlie. Sounds
good. That's a good pick.
All right. Charlie Jones, putting him in there in time. Now we've got yellow. We've got yellow thumbtacks for the day 3 people. Somewhere in the Midwest. All right. This is going to be a long wait now in between rounds 4 and 7. So while we do this, Ray, what do you think the Steelers should? I mean, last year they really took a flyer on a quarterback at 7B, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. They've got a 7A and a 7B again this year. I think sometimes these picks get a bad rap. People say, who cares? It's a 7th rounder. But, you can try to hit on these and try to at least draft somebody either with some upside or maybe somebody who's just a good football player and doesn't have the measurables that gets overlooked in the first 6 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways you could look at it. I mean, you can.
I need some coffee to stay awake for the 7th round. Sorry.
A lot of times you can kind of, this late in the draft, you could almost be like, okay, developmentally, can we stash this guy on IR? Can we hide him on the practice squad? Somebody.
No guarantee that the 7th rounders are going to make it in any season, but especially this season with what the Steelers signing. I think you wrote last week, was it 8 outside free agents so far?
8 outside free agents, and probably more. Before training camp gets here, if we want to extend that period out a few more months. I would go tight end here, outside linebacker here.
What about third string quarterback?
Third string quarterback, maybe that would be my third choice. Do you want to double down? They've been really interested in interior offensive linemen. They had that Zavala kid in from he was from NC State last week. I'm not sure if he would last, but I'm thinking probably tight end and outside linebacker, unless there's the random long snapper or punter they want to bring in to challenge for a special teams job.
Yeah, maybe a kicker needs to come in here to challenge Chris Boswell. But all right, here are the edge rushers who are available: DJ Johnson from Oregon, Nick Hampton from Appalachian State, Jose Ramirez from Eastern Michigan, Tavius Robinson from Mississippi. You could go with another Mississippi guy named Robinson in the 7th round if you want for the second year in a row. Akena Inachukwu from Rice. So, no big names, obviously. I will humor you with your tight ends. I know this guy's been in your mocks at least once. Payne Durham from Purdue. We just drafted Charlie Jones from Purdue. I don't know if we want the entire offense from the Boilermakers, but he's there. And then really not much else. Braden Willis, Oklahoma. Marshawn Ford, Louisville. This is I think a good tight end class at the top, but not really as you get into the depths of it. So, what's on your mind here, Ray Lytle?
I'm the assistant GM here, and you're the GM, Brian. So I'll let you make this pick. I wouldn't have an issue going with Payne Durham, but I know there's only 6 or 8 slots until the next pick. So so why don't you pick an outside backer if that's the route you want to go? I'm not really familiar with a lot of those outside backers you named.
Yeah, I'm good with taking a tools tradesy guy. This DJ Johnson from Oregon, I believe he's got good size, and I think he might have transferred or changed positions, maybe both. At this point, we haven't studied as much. Maybe we'll use these last 2 weeks to study the 7th round prospects, but I have seen him higher on some outlets, so I'll go with DJ Johnson to come in and try to challenge, your Jameer Joneses and Quincy Roches to maybe work his way in there as the number 3 edge rusher. Plus, we at least get to put attack all the way up here in the Pacific Northwest with that pick. So that's DJ Johnson with our first 7th rounder. And here comes Steelers, Mr. Irrelevant, North Shore Drive, Mr. Irrelevant of 2023. Payne Durham is still available on the interior O-line. There's not much because I was thinking maybe try to get a backup center at this point, but there's not many guys like that. Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan, the 2 national championship quarterbacks, are around on the board, as well as Penn State's Sean Clifford. So those are a few other names that maybe there's somebody listening on the podcast forum or watching at home screaming that you need a number 3 QB to come in here behind Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, listen, I would go Payne Durham or one of those quarterbacks. I think, if you're looking for a number 3 guy to develop, mobility would be nice. So maybe the kid from TCU would be an intriguing prospect there. Not that I think that he could ever develop into a starter, but I'll go Durham or a quarterback if you want to break that tie.
We never did draft an inside linebacker, and there's a Shaka Hayward here from Duke, who is the cousin of Cam and Connor Hayward. So we could really keep it. We could really keep it in the family to get a 7th round special teams grinder. But
I thought you were going to say Shaka Khan for a minute there.
There's also Bumper Pohl from Arkansas, which might be the best name in the draft. I think he won the what's the award for the college walk-ons, Burlsworth Trophy. I believe he won that this season. So he'd be like Tyler Matakevich part 2, I think. Maybe we can pick up one of those 2 as an undrafted free agent.
There you go. There's always 10 or 12 of those guys too. So
yeah, there are. All right. So guess you're going to leave this in my wheelhouse again. I'm going to overrule you on the tight end because I think I just like our top 3: Freiermuth, Gentry, Hayward, and I will make the controversial quarterback pick and take Stetson Bennett from the Georgia Bulldogs. I think he might actually be older than Kenny Pickett at this point. He might be older than Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph at this
Get ready,
point.
Southside. Get ready, Southside.
Yes, he did get himself in a little bit of hot water running around with the DUI in Dallas when he could have been in Mobile at the Senior Bowl as well. Were people buzzing about that week? I
seem to remember a little bit of that, yeah. So he couldn't stoop to bringing himself to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah. Well, he better buy into being the backup here in Pittsburgh to a quarterback who was drafted in the 1st round a year before him. But maybe he'll turn into the longtime QB2 for the Steelers, the way that many other local legends have. Your Charlie Batch, Brian St. Pierre, Landry Jones. Maybe that's in the cards for Stetson Bennett. So, all right, before we get out of here, I will read you down the list of our North Shore Drive 2023 mock draft for Brian Batko and Ray Fittipaldo. We went Darnell Wright from Tennessee in the first round, Brian Branch and Keion White in the second round, Jalen Jones and Charlie Jones in rounds 3 and 4, and rounded it out with DJ Johnson and Stetson Bennett. So I think we got better today, Ray. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of like it. Pretty good exercise here that is a good thing here 2.5 weeks before the draft. So I think the fans will like our first 3 or 4 picks. And I think that's all really anyone's concentrating on. So
yeah. If you don't like our 7th round pick, I don't know what to tell you other than NFL mock draft database gave us B+ for both. And we did not score lower than a B. And our first 3 picks got straight A's. So, I mean, what more can you ask for?
There you go. Send your complaints to NFL mock draft database.
Or you can send them to Chris Carter, the usual host of this show, since he
just not us.
Since he had both of us filling in for him today. But thanks as always for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back as always with more Steelers, more NFL draft talk, probably more Pirates and Penguins talk later this week, since Pirates are just starting to get going. O'Neal Cruz injury was a big one, whereas the Penguins season is possibly winding down, possibly heating up if they find a way to squeak into the playoffs. We will see what happens there. For Ray Fittipaldo, I'm Brian Batko. Thanks as always for checking us out on the North Shore Drive, whether it's on YouTube, which as always we'd remind you to subscribe to if you like this episode or you like the other ones you've seen, or if you're listening on the old audio versions. Great to be with you guys again. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.